Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland. We're delighted to have Kate Shank with us from Legal Aid Chicago, and to hear a lot about the organization, the work that it does, and its importance here in the city of Chicago. So Kate is the CEO and Executive Director of Legal Aid Chicago and has previously served as Legal Aid Chicago's Deputy Director and Chief of Staff. So a long career at the organization. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what Legal Aid Chicago does and its importance to the Chicago community.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here with you all and the opportunity to talk about the work that Legal Aid Chicago does and how critical it is for safety and security in Cook County. So we are a civil legal aid provider. What that means is that we serve people who are low income, who have a problem in our civil courts. So it could be anything from being evicted to someone who needs help of an order of protection, someone whose child is being pushed out of school, or their home is being foreclosed on, or they need help with obtaining public benefits. In those types of cases and many, many, many others, virtually all other types of cases that are civil, there is no right to an attorney. So if someone cannot afford private counsel, which we know is tremendously expensive, they are on their own to achieve the justice and the rights that they're entitled to. We serve all of Cook County. We never charge for our services. There's about 1 million people in Cook County who are financially eligible for our help. So just to kind of give a little bit of a framework of what that means, generally speaking, a family of 4 cannot earn more than about $40,000 a year and remain eligible for our services. And so we know that even for middle income families, the cost of legal representation means having an attorney is out of reach. But for families who are living in poverty, they really have no choice but to go it alone unless they have an attorney from Legal Aid Chicago or other legal aid organizations standing beside them. Their personal safety, their jobs, again, all these things can be at risk. We are able to provide our services for free thanks to government grants and foundation grants, gifts from law firms, corporations, and importantly, individuals. We handle, again, the full range of civil legal issues. And I'd be happy to talk about, more in detail about what some of those are, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Give us an example of a recent case or something that sticks in your memory from maybe the past year of where Legal Aid Chicago's representation and work has been essential to an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So for an example, we represent tenants, and we have a focus on representing tenants who live in subsidized housing. And the reason that we do that, so these are tenants who live either in sort of traditional public housing or who have a Section 8 voucher, a subsidy that allows them to rent on the private market. And the reason that we choose to focus on those types of tenants is because the stakes are so high for them. So individuals and families who live in that type of subsidized housing, they are at great risk of homelessness if they are evicted. And if they are evicted, they lose their right to return to any subsidized housing. And since their income is so low for them to even qualify for that subsidy in the first place, they're unlikely to be able to rent on the private market. And so without that subsidy, they're just a short step away, from sleeping in a couch, on a floor in a car or on the street. So an example of our work in this area, we represented an 89-year-old woman with a disability. She had lived in the same apartment for nearly 50 years. For the past 15 of those years, she paid her rent using a housing voucher. But for the last 5 years, her landlord was illegally charging her rent on top of what the voucher already covered. She didn't know that the landlord's demand for this extra rent was illegal. And then she did learn of her rights and she stopped paying that extra amount. That's when the landlord retaliated against her by filing an eviction case. We stepped in, Legal Aid Chicago attorney stepped in. We used that illegal rent overcharge as leverage, and we were able to get that eviction dismissed and sealed. And then we got her a new lease so she can stay safely in her home. And this is exactly the type of case as why legal aid matters. Because without a lawyer, she would have lost the home that she's lived in for a half a century simply for standing up for her rights.
Let me jump in here as a kind of a veteran of doing some rent strikes back in the old days. And we've had guests on the show from the All Chicago Tenants Alliance, and they and other groups, there seems to be a growth in the number of tenant union organizations that are evolving. I'm wondering if you're in touch with any of those groups.
We collaborate with community-based organizations and other advocacy organizations all the time to make sure that residents are aware of our services. They know that they can contact us. What we are doing is we're doing everything from giving folks advice, right, on how they may be able to navigate the system on their own. We are writing letters. We're contacting landlords. We're talking to employers. We're also, and where we're spending most of our time, is appearing in court or in administrative proceedings. The very long-term, complicated work that really requires a lawyer in order to achieve justice. And in order to make sure that folks know of us, because so many folks are unaware that the problems that they're having have a legal solution to them, we have to be in close relationship and partnership with all sorts of, community-based advocacy, and other types of organizations. Absolutely.
So, you work across Chicagoland and suburban Cook County. This might sound, you say not many people know you're doing this work, which is surprising because I think I read on your website you have 200 staff members, so you're a large organization. But if somebody feels they need your assistance, how do they find you?
Yeah, there's lots of ways that folks are finding us. So they call in. We, have a team that answers the phone, 5 days a week. And we get calls all the time. So if we were able to pick up the phone, we estimate by the volume of traffic that we would have between about 5,000 to 6,000 people are trying to contact us every month.
Wow.
Even with the large staff that we have, right? We have 115 full-time lawyers and a total staff, as you said, of over 200. We can't even come close to answering 5,000 to 6,000 calls a month. But nevertheless, a lot of people are calling us. They're also registering for our services online. We also are located in the communities. So we offer 4 community-based legal clinics that are walk-in, no appointment needed. They operate in evening hours. So every week there is one happening in Chicago in various neighborhoods where folks can come in. We are in the courthouses. We are in some city centers helping people to enroll in public benefits. We have an outpost out in Austin. So we really do try to balance the fact that we are located, our physical office is downtown in the Loop, but we also have points of accessibility for folks to be able to reach us that are in the community and maybe more convenient to where they live and where they work.
So how did you get personally involved in this type of work? I mean, there's a lot of directions someone with a law degree can go.
Yeah.
And so what was the journey that you took?
Well, I came to law school. I came to Chicago. I went to Northwestern, and I came to law school knowing that I wanted to do social justice focused work. My undergraduate degree is in social work. I really wanted to work on behalf of vulnerable populations and people who may not have as loud of a voice as they should, right? And so I really focused my law school and my attentions on, okay, how can I make a difference for people in my community? And I came to Legal Aid Chicago immediately after law school. I've been here for 24 years and started out with a focus on serving survivors of domestic violence. That's another big practice area that we have, is working with typically women, but not exclusively, who are facing, immediate and current violence that obviously impacts their personal safety as well as that of their kids. And so that was my introduction to the work here. And I found that it sort of fit all of my professional and personal goals in terms of working directly with individuals in need, being able to make a real genuine difference for them in a way that I know they would not have been able to achieve on their own, because our legal system is so tremendously complicated that it is impractical unrealistic and unfair to expect that somebody could navigate it without an attorney. And so to be able to be in that position and be able to use the privilege that I have of my education and my degree to really create change for individuals and their families, I was absolutely hooked. And have stayed with it obviously for the entirety of my career, and just see every single day the impact that my colleagues are having on folks that are living in Chicago. I mean, we served over 10,000 individuals last year. And when you talk about the impact that has, sometimes it is one person with their singular legal issue. Maybe it's just a household of one that has been denied food stamps, but more often it's not. More often it is preventing an unnecessary foreclosure that is saving the home of, yes, that mortgage holder, but is also preserving the family home for their kids and for that generational wealth building. And there's so many examples of that, where the work that we do on behalf of one person has a much bigger and immediate impact on their family and on the stability of their community as well.
What legislation or moves by government in the state of Illinois might lessen your load? What kind of laws that are kind of reactionary or negative that result in people having to reach out to you? Any things that could change in government or things we should root for to make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly laws and policy changes that happen. So accessibility to food stamps is one that's really, front and center, right? And there are new regulations that are coming down from the federal government that do have an impact on folks' ability to obtain and maintain, access to healthy food. And so we're always mindful of those. There's been some great strides over the years in terms of additional protections for survivors of domestic violence. So, for example, something that we can really all feel very proud about was the passage of Karina's Law that happened on Mother's Day in 2025. And what that did was allow for sort of greater certainty and protections for someone who is a survivor of domestic violence where their abuser has a firearm. And Karina's Law allows for law enforcement to have stronger abilities to go and remove that firearm from that abuser in those circumstances. And that is absolutely a life-changing law that was put into place. And, of course, it came out of incredibly tragic situation, right? The law is named for a woman who lost her life because a firearm was not removed when it should have been. And so we have seen some real improvements in laws that do have a direct impact on day-to-day safety and stability in our communities.
Yeah, our previous guest, Jane Ramsey, talked about the legacy of the civil rights era in the formation of the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs and the importance of that kind of historical legacy to current community engagement by the organization. And I think Legal Aid Chicago has similar roots in the 1960s.
We do. So we were founded in sort of the late 60s, but really kind of came into our own in the mid 70s with the creation of the Legal Services Corporation. And that's a federally funded entity. We receive currently about 30% of our funding from this single federal source. The Legal Services Corporation ensures that there is a civil legal aid provider, much like Legal Aid Chicago, that is serving every county across our entire country. So the formation of the Legal Services Corporation and the funding that goes along with it 51 years ago was absolutely fundamental to establishing and securing that basis of having there be a reliable, a very well monitored, and very well, the quality of the services, right, that are coming out of entities like mine at Legal Aid Chicago because of the intense amount of oversight, right, from the federal government and otherwise, ensures that everyone has access to to a civil legal aid provider, no matter where they live. They could live in downstate Illinois. They could live in the middle of Chicago. They could live in Alaska or California. It doesn't matter. They're all covered. And so that was really our roots, the roots of us as Legal Aid Chicago, and the roots of this foundation of consistent quality civil legal aid happening across the country.
Do you have any fear of funding from the federal government getting rescinded? Is it an issue for you?
It is. That's something that is a front of mind for us. The White House has proposed total elimination of funding for the Legal Services Corporation. So for us to lose 30% right out would be just absolutely catastrophic for what representation and services to low-income people and their rights, right? Their access to justice, utterly catastrophic. The House has proposed a 46% cut, and the Senate has proposed a 1% increase, because truly this is an issue that is a nonpartisan issue. There are folks, regardless of what their political colors are, that support and understand the importance of civil legal aid. Nevertheless, this is not a position that we are comfortable being in, where there are proposed very, very significant cuts. There is also other federal entities that provide funding for civil legal aid through HUD, through the IRS, through the Department of Justice, and so forth. Those are also have some uncertainties associated with them. So we take very seriously the support that we get from the state, from the county, from the city, and from everyday people. It really makes a difference for us and our ability to serve our clients and bring justice that they are entitled to. Something that really separates us is that we are not obligated to take any case. So what that means is that we screen and we determine that the cases that we spend time on are ones for which there is a legal resolution, that our clients are entitled to the relief under the law that we are pursuing for them. And that means that when we, decide to represent a client to move forward with their case, we take very seriously the knowledge that they would be unlikely to achieve what they are entitled to without our support and representation. And frankly, without the support, right, that we get, because we don't charge and we never will, without the support we get from all the various sources, our ability to achieve true justice, entitled justice, would be greatly diminished.
I'm a little confused on when you started out, you said that, lawyers are expensive and not everybody gets to have a lawyer. I thought that in a court that you could get a public defender. What's your relationship with public defenders?
So you're absolutely right to be confused. That's a real big area of...
I get confused a lot these days.
Well, you're in good company. You're really in good company because there is no right to an attorney in civil cases. So if you're facing a criminal charge for which your personal liberty is at stake, you have a right to a public defender. But if you're facing an eviction, if you are, facing deportation, if you are, needing an order of protection, if your, kid is being denied special education services, if you are being sued on a debt that you don't owe, for all of these circumstances and really anything else that isn't criminal, there's no right to an attorney. And so without Legal Aid Chicago or other entities that provide similar civil legal aid services, folks would absolutely be out there on their own trying to navigate the court system.
Kate, do you deal with immigration cases, and has there been an uptick in that?
We do. We handle immigration cases for survivors of crime, which is a, unfortunately huge segment of the, immigrants in our area. And yes, there has been an increased need for those services. We have a team of about 20 or so attorneys and paralegals that are working with immigrant survivors of crime. We also have a social work team here at Legal Aid Chicago who supports working with our attorneys and clients who have ongoing cases to make sure that they are able to appropriately and engage with their attorney, right? Participate in their case. Our social work team also helps provide other access to other resources, community-based and other resources that our clients might need. That Legal Aid Chicago is not the place for those services. They help get people furniture for apartments or moving assistance or a wide variety of other things that really can help to stabilize the legal issue. But yeah, immigration is one aspect of the wide range of work that we do.
Do you find young people these days more and more enthused about serving the people, or is there among young men, are they more conservative and not going into serving the people kind of jobs?
It's hard for me to say. We have a lot of people, we're lucky to say we have a lot of people who are very enthusiastic about working with us. And so that is always very heartening, right? It's a combination of heartening. We're always very happy to see a lot of folks who are curious about working with us, who are applying for jobs with us. We also know that's reflective in some ways of what's happening with the economy when a lot of applications come in. So we don't have any shortage of really strong and committed folks who want to spend time working with us, learning the law, serving our clients, serving their community.
I think one of your organization's most interesting and innovative recent developments, recent partnerships is a recovery legal care program and working in emergency rooms. I was just wondering if you could tell us, it's not something that would come to mind necessarily as needing a lawyer in an emergency room. So and I've just been watching the hospital drama on HBO, and so it's in my head very much at the moment, the emergency room. But could you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's, I think, landlord-tenant disputes, we understand. Domestic violence, is obviously an extremely important issue. But what is this in emergency rooms with your recovery legal care program?
I appreciate you asking about that. So recovery legal care is part of a general model that we have and that exists in other legal aid organizations called medical legal partnerships. And that is a partnership where we, for example, are partnered with, in this circumstance, the University of Chicago's Trauma Center. So when the medical providers identify that a patient, and in this case, recovery legal care, patients who are coming in who are typically survivors of gun violence, that they have a legal issue that impacts their health. And so then they connect those patients with our attorneys to make an assessment about, okay, do you need an order of protection? Do you need access to disability or other public benefits? Do you need safe housing? What are the other legal issues that are going to prevent you from having a full medical recovery? And what are the other supports that you need? And so that's where our attorneys are partnering extremely closely with the medical staff there at UChicago's Trauma Center. We also have a medical legal partnership with Cook County Health. We're very proud of that one as well. And it's the same model. It doesn't focus just on survivors of gun violence. It focuses on, any folks that are getting services at the hospital for which the medical provider says, who can supplement their care, Legal Aid Chicago.
How can people find Legal Aid Chicago?
They can call our phone line, 312-341-1070. They can also register online anytime, legalaidchicago.org. They can find information about the locations and times of our walk-in legal clinics on our website as well.
Kate Shank, we want to thank you for joining us on the Live from the Heartland show. We hope to have you back on sometime because I know there are a lot of legal issues out there that some of our listeners may want to take advantage of or non-advantage of. And everyone else.